Hey! In this video you will see the top 5 best tanks of the 9th tier. The main criteria for the list are the set of all characteristics of the tank and its relevance in current random. Without further ado, let's go! In 5th place is the German medium tank, Leopard Prototype A. This tank has probably the best gun among all medium tanks of the 9th tier. Excellent damage per shot and damage per minute. Thanks to such high damage per shot, you can safely swap shots with enemies' medium tanks, as you will be an A+ anyway. It is also worth noting the excellent average penetration of basic and premium shells. This allows you to penetrate even heavy tier 10 tanks without any problems, not to mention enemies of 9th and 8th tiers. And features such as accuracy and aiming time are also very good. Stabilization is not very good, but you can get used to it, and, with due skill, you will not feel much discomfort. In short, the gun is excellent in all aspects. As for mobility, the Leopard doesn't disappoint either. Excellent engine power and top speed. This is one of the most mobile medium tanks at tier 9. As for armor, there is none. It's so weak, that it does not even resist high explosive shells. Occasionally there are situations, where a shell ricochets off the turret, but this is extremely rare. Gameplay on the Leopard is about supporting allied heavy tanks, and firing from medium and long distances. In short, Leopard Prototype A is a great medium tank, with awesome gun and mobility, but without armor. It will appeal to all fans of the so-called sniper vehicles. In 4th place is another German medium tank, the T-55A. This tank has excellent, but not as strong a gun as the Leopard. The average damage per shot is 320, which is quite low as for a tier 9 tank, though the damage per minute is quite high, and makes up for it. The average penetration of basic shells is 221 mm. This is quite low, but if you know the vulnerabilities of tanks, it's not a problem. Separately, it is worth noting average penetration of premium shells. As much as 330 mm. It's enough to easily penetrate any, even most heavy armored tanks in the game. Accuracy, aiming time, and stabilization are awesome. However, there is one disadvantage: low depression angle of the gun, only 5 degrees. As for mobility, their T-55 is also good. Powerful engine allows you quickly reach a top speed of 50 km per hour. I highly recommend using the turbocharger to make mobility of this tank even better. And, now we come to the main reason why the T-55A takes a higher position than the Leopard. Its armor. Yes, the T-55 is far from the most armored medium tank at tier 9, the same Soviet T-54 is much better in this respect. Yes, all tier 9 tanks have no problem penetrating this tank in the hull. But it has armor, and it's foolish to deny it. It's just such an armor, which you need to know how to use properly. Competently take positions, put the sight at right angles and all that. In short, the T-55A can be called a universal tank, and it's inherent in any gameplay. You can skirmish with heavy tanks head-on. You can play as a classic medium tank, or support allies from afar as a tank destroyer. This is a very cool tank. If you have not yet completed missions to get it, you are missing out. Well, if you can't get a T-55A, you can buy a grinding Soviet T-54. It has the same gameplay and similar characteristics to the T-55A, only with better armor, but a less comfortable gun. You wouldn't believe it, but in 3rd place is another German medium tank, this time it is the KPZ-50T. The firepower of this tank is similar to the T-55A, but still has some differences. The average damage per shot is 320, the average damage per minute is about 3000. Such figures are quite low, as for a tank of the 9th tier, moreover the medium. But average penetration of the basic shells is as much as 268 mm. This is not only better than the T-55A, it is better than all the medium tanks of tier 9, except for Leopard of course. But average penetration of premium shells is not so high, and is only 310 mm. Unlike the T-55A, on the KPZ is a pleasure to use basic shells. Playing on it, you can almost completely abandon the premium shells. As for accuracy, stabilization, and aiming time, all this is great. In short, it's a very good gun, though not the strongest one. Mobility of this tank is controversial. Seemingly, good specific engine power, excellent top speed, but what's wrong? The thing is that the KPZ has weak terrain resistance, and its maximum speed of 60 km per hour it almost never gets. Mostly it goes about 50 km per hour. Unfortunately, this problem is not solved even by installing the turbocharger. Of course, you can try to install track reinforcement, but it's quite a controversial decision. In any case, mobility of this tank is more A+ than a minus. Armor. That's what makes the KPZ stand out from probably all medium tanks of the 9th tier. The turret forehead has armor of 250 to 300 mm. The hull forehead is also very strong, and has armor of about 270 mm. I think you understand yourself that this is very cool. However, not everything is as good as desired. There are two vulnerabilities that spoil the experience of playing this tank. These are the bottom part of the hull and the sides. If with the first one everything is clear, then with the second one is such a thing. The sides of the hull have only 40 mm of armor. This means that enemy tanks that have a gun caliber 120 or higher have no problem penetrating KPZ in the sides at any, even steepest angle. Undoubtedly, this is a weighty disadvantage of this tank. However, if you learn how to use this armor properly, you will be a big problem for your enemies. Thus, the KPZ-50T is a tank with good, though not the most rapid-firing gun, good mobility and excellent, though difficult to use armor. To be honest, I don't quite understand the concept of this tank, why developers made it that way. If you ask me, the features of this tank don't fit together well. It would have been better to give it at least 60 mm of sides armor and a little reduce accuracy of the gun. But we are where we are. Even in this form, it's one of the strongest tanks at Tier 9. In second place is the British tank destroyer, Tortoise. Personally, I don't like this class of vehicles, but this tank definitely deserves attention. Let's begin with its minuses. The first minus, mobility. It can't be called poor. It's just ridiculous. If you decide to play this tank, I highly recommend to use turbocharger to compensate this problem somehow. So, this is the end of its disadvantages. Further, there are only pluses. Damage per shot is pretty low, only 400. But basic damage per minute is 3000. It can be boosted up to 4300. That's really cool. If you manage to knock out the enemy's track, he won't be able to go anywhere. It is worth noting that depression angles of the gun are very good, as for a tank destroyer. And of course excellent accuracy, aiming time, and even stabilization. In short, this gun is perfect in all aspects. The second plus is armor. The frontal projection is of 270 to 350 mm in different parts. There is a small vulnerability in the form of a hatch, but sometimes even it will absorb shells without damage. Surprisingly, the sides also have excellent armor. You will especially experience full strength of these sides if you take an upgrade in the field modification to increase durability of the tracks by 30%. In fact, it's not a tank destroyer, but a heavy tank, with a very powerful gun. Thus, Tortoise, this is an incredibly powerful tank destroyer, with a perfect gun, excellent armor, and poor mobility. This tank is designed for close-range battles. I am truly sorry that I see players on the Tortoise, who stand in the bushes, thinking that it is a tank destroyer. And finally, first place. In first place is the Soviet artillery, Object 212. Okay, I'm kidding. Of course, this is the American heavy tank, Concept 1B. To be honest, I wonder why developers made such a strong tank. Looking ahead, it has no minuses, at all. It's good in absolutely all aspects. The gun is standard, as for a Tier 9 heavy tank. Damage per shot is 400, damage per minute is about 2800. Yes, it's not very cool, but nevertheless, it's okay. Accuracy and aiming time are well balanced. Stabilization is very comfortable. As for armor and mobility, things are much more interesting. The hull's forehead armor on average is about 220 mm. At the same time, the sides armor is as much as 120 mm. That's very strong. The armor of the turret is also very good, and has no pronounced vulnerabilities. The main advantage of armor of this tank is that it is easy to use, and even a beginner will be able to use it effectively. Yes, there are different vulnerabilities, but few players know about it and it's quite hard to hit it. As said before, in addition to the strong armor, Concept 1B has excellent mobility, as for a heavy tank. With turbocharger in the appropriate slot, the specific engine power is about 23 horsepower per ton, and the top speed is 47 km per hour. In terms of mobility, it's practically a medium tank. And that's really cool. So, the Concept 1B has a rare combination of good armor and mobility, while having a pretty good gun. It's not just a universal tank, it's an overpowered tank that should be nerfed. Just look at the bar for 3 marks. That's the Super Conqueror for comparison. I think you get the point. Well, thank you for watching this video to the end. I hope you found it useful. It's time to say goodbye. Good luck to everyone. And remember, don't play World of Tanks.